Welcome back to Storytime. In today's episode, we're going to be continuing our reading of Machines and Men. But before we jump into it, just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying this content, feel free to hit that like button, and if you really want to become a Creant, you can also find us on Reddit and Twitter, links in the description. Just a quick reminder of Machines and Men is a story that may not be appropriate for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. And now, Machines and Men, Chapter 10, The Positronic Brain at Work. The next morning started as pretty much every day for Stephen. Wake up to the alarm, get up, scratch himself, yawn, turn off the alarm, look longingly at the bed, wish he could go back to sleep. Today he looked especially longingly because Vera was in the bed, looking lovely as always, dressed only in a tank top and underwear. It would be really nice to climb back into bed, snuggle up with Vera and sleep for another couple hours. Hell, for that matter, he could have stand to have some nice wake-up sex. But he had other things on his plate today. He sat on the bed and brushed some of the hair out of Vera's face. She opened her eyes and looked up at him warmly. "Good morning," she said, sitting up. Good morning," he responded, giving her a quick kiss on the forehead. "I gotta go to work today. Are you going to be all right here all by yourself?"
"Yeah, I'll be fine,"
Vera said somewhat wistfully.
"What time will you be home?"
"I get off work around 6. I'll be back in time for dinner," Stephen said, standing up and padding into the bathroom. He showered and shaved and came downstairs to find Vera in the kitchen making breakfast. She had made scrambled eggs and bacon, which she had loaded onto a plate for him and poured him a glass of orange juice. She looked very cute standing there, and it was a very pleasant and welcome surprise to find that she had made breakfast. He crossed the kitchen and kissed her, which she returned warmly. "This looks great, Vera. Thank you so much," Stephen said, giving her a side hug and indicating the breakfast.
"Aw, that's sweet,"
she said, giving him a slight bump with her hip.
"I saw you do it yesterday. I'm glad you like it."
"You're so good for me, babe," he said, giving her another kiss. After breakfast, Stephen helped Vera wash up and gave her another kiss before leaving. Vera watched him pull out of the driveway and motor out of sight before going back inside the house. She went upstairs and showered, not because she needed to, but because she knew it was something that Stephen liked. She really liked Stephen. He was such a warm person. She was already starting to feel a sense of missing him, an odd sort of hollow feeling. She had experienced it before when Stephen had gone out yesterday, and when he had come back she had experienced relief and elation. Oh well, she would have to examine these sensations later. Vera checked the list of tasks that Stephen would like her to learn. She had already crossed off capoeira, singing, and breakdancing, though she thought the further development could be achieved in the field of breakdancing. There were so many variations of movement and different combinations based on the flow of the music. She would definitely need to spend more time on that today. Glancing down at the list, again, Vera also saw how to clean, use, and maintain firearms, rock climbing, parkour, cooking, sexual techniques, how to drive, both manual and automatic, carpentry and woodworking, metalworking and fabrication, drawing, how to ride a bicycle, how to play video games. There was also an extensive list of TV shows Stephen recommended she check out. Vera switched on the smart TV and maneuvered to YouTube. She typed, "How to clean, use, and maintain firearms," seated herself on the couch, and began watching tutorials. She wasn't sure why she would ever need to know this, but if it was what Stephen wanted, she was happy to oblige him. Stephen spent his day pondering what Vera was up to, though he also had a great many things on his plate. He had to get caught up with all the work he'd missed on Friday, as well as doing the usual Monday work. During lunch, he made a point of talking to Meg again, and they had a very interesting philosophical debate about if people actually had free choice, or if everything they did was influenced by what came before them. He had to admit that he may have been wrong about Meg. Maybe she dressed frumpily because she was shy. It certainly wouldn't surprise him. As he got to know her, he began to realize that she was very much the sort of person who prefers to smile and nod and keep her opinion to herself. But it was mostly because she liked to listen to every side of a debate and then make up her mind. He was also delighted to find out that she was as much of a geek as he was and could talk about movies, comics, books, and TV shows with interest for hours. Vera sat back and crossed parkour off her list. It seemed fairly easy, just a matter of applying basic physics and correct application of strength. She wondered if Stephen wanted her to practice these skills or just learn them. She sort of wished she could practice the skills she had learned. Otherwise, how else would she be able to test her ability to do the task? She wasn't sure what the purpose of learning these tasks was, but she was happy to learn them anyway. It was going to be challenging to master the movements without actually doing them. Stephen had not told her to stay in the house specifically, but she felt it was implied. Vera looked over at the door. She had time. It was barely 10 o'clock. She was uncertain about what to do next. She wanted to learn the skills Stephen had set her, but also wanted him not to worry about her. Finally, she decided that the best course of action was to practice the skills carefully before Stephen returned home. If he asked, she would of course tell him the truth about her day. But if he didn't, there was no reason that she need tell him about it. Her decision made, she went upstairs and changed into a sports bra and sweatpants, the same outfits worn by the women in the videos. Stepping outside, Vera took a moment to notice her surroundings. She never got lost. As long as she could see where she was turning, she could always remember her way back. She started jogging down the road, scanning left and right as she ran, memorizing the cross streets and landmarks, forming a three-dimensional map of the area in her head as she scanned. Spotting a likely-looking stairwell, she paused and carefully judged the measurements and distance of the area. There were several tricks that could be incorporated given the layout of the area, and a list of them filed through Vera's mind. Without hesitation, she launched herself into the parkour. She Kong-vaulted over a low wall, leaped a gap, landing safely on the other side. She bounded up a brick wall, reached the top, and performed a flawless backflip from the top, rolling into a somersault when she landed. Standing, Vera mentally checked off the tricks as she performed them. Precise speed and body positioning was required to perform these tasks. Maybe that was why Stephen wanted her to learn them. She suspected that capoeira and breakdancing had also been a test of her motor abilities. Well, she wasn't going to let him down. She continued to tirelessly practice various parkour tricks, unaware of the small crowd of onlookers she was drawing. She performed an inversion flip from one side of the stairwell to the other and turned at the sound of applause. She wasn't sure what the point of applauding was, but she knew the appropriate response from her research. Climbing to the top of the wall, she bowed, eliciting even more applause. A goodly number of the crowd were men and appeared to be the ones applauding the loudest. Vera was somewhat uncertain as to why that should be, but she filed that away for future reference. Maybe it has something to do with her appearance. She had observed that men seemed to be more receptive than women. She checked her clothes. They were all present and correct. Perhaps it had to do with her breasts. She had observed that men seemed to fixate on them for some reason, though for her own part Vera didn't really understand their appeal. So far as she knew, they served no actual purpose, and if truth be told, she found them frequently impeding her ability to perform certain tasks. Flipping upside down, Vera performed a handstand on the ledge of the wall. Here again, she felt the breast's weight throwing her off balance, and her internal gyros had to compensate for it, before lifting one hand and balancing on the other one. The crowd gasped and applauded again. Vera continued to run through the movements she had seen, to the appreciative oohs and ahs of the crowd. Many people had their phones out and were filming the performance. When she had completed the routine, Vera ran back to Stephen's house, though not without politely declining several propositions for dates and sex. She was pleased with the attention. It was an indication that she was doing it right. She hoped Stephen would like it as much. Stephen himself was completing his work for the day when Meg poked her head into his cubicle.
"Hey," she said hesitatingly. "Some of us are planning to go to a movie tonight. I was wondering if you'd like to come. It's okay if you have plans, though. I know it's last minute."
Stephen bit his lip uncertainly. He had told Vera he would be home by 6, and he didn't want to keep her waiting. On the other hand, aside from Andy, Meg was the closest thing to a friend he had here. It would be nice to hang out for a while. He briefly considered asking if Vera could come along, but he knew enough to recognize that even though other people were coming, that Meg was asking him in particular. It wouldn't be very nice to bring Vera along and shatter Meg's hopes. "I'm really sorry," Stephen said sincerely, "but I'm meeting up with someone after work today. Thanks for the offer, though." Meg smiled and shook her head a bit ruefully.
"Oh well, maybe next time," she said with a grimace.
Stephen caught the note of resignation in her voice and guessed that this was probably how it went for Meg usually. She certainly didn't seem a particularly social person, and it was probable she didn't have many friends. He felt sorry for her, but what could he do about it? Still, the idea of Meg without friends to hang out with was something that Stephen could empathize with. How often had he felt that way? Totally random question Stephen posed as Meg began to leave. "Do you play any RPGs?"
"I do some Pathfinder now and again,"
Meg confessed, flushing, clearly embarrassed. "Well, a friend of mine is trying to get a group together for D&D. Would you be interested in joining us for that?
Yeah, okay.
Meg said, unconsciously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear.
Let me know when the game is.
Stephen could see all the danger signs. Meg was clearly interested in him, which was unfortunate since she was too late. He was starting to like Meg as a person, as a friend, but Meg couldn't compete with Vera, not really. Oh, she was nice enough, and her nerd cred was on point, and in a different world maybe he could have dated her. But things were different now. He had Vera. She was perfect for him, designed to be so. He did have to admit that Meg was cute when she was flustered, but she always dressed so frumpily that he couldn't tell what she really looked like. Not that it mattered, because no matter how pretty she was, Vera had her beat, and would always be prettier. There was not really anything that Meg could offer that Vera couldn't. Well, except the potential of children, and that wasn't something that Stephen cared particularly about. Not right now, at least. Traveling home, Stephen ran over again and again in his mind the thought, Vera is all I need. But was she really? Meg had made some good points when she had explained why she wouldn't date a robot. For a start, while he would continue to age, Vera would remain the same age, like a rose preserved in liquid nitrogen. He didn't like the idea that eventually he would die and she never would. What would Vera do after he died? Would she power down or carry on alone? It wasn't a pleasant thought. In his mind, Stephen imagined Arwen from The Lord of the Rings after Aragorn died. Not only that, but of course Vera could never have children. It wasn't a priority to him now, but what about the future? His parents had already dropped some not-so-subtle hints that time was a-wastin', and they'd like to see the Waters line continue. He had to admit that even he had thought about what it would be like to have children, though old enough that he could teach them stuff, and definitely old enough that he wouldn't have to change diapers. He had even shocked himself by thinking about what he would do if any theoretical children found themselves in any situation like he saw in sitcoms. But he loved Vera. He really did. That much was abundantly clear to him. True, she was a bit naive, but he found that endearing. Vera was the innocence that Stephen had abandoned long ago. It was refreshing to meet someone who actually cared about the feelings of others. And hadn't it been the entire purpose of getting a robot mate in the first place? He had had it with women and all their mind games, all the insane machismo shit they did. Who needed that headache? Vera was always going to be there for him, would never leave him or cheat on him. She would never, could never do anything to harm him. And all she wanted in life was to make him happy. In Stephen's experience, these were things humans were generally unwilling to do for other humans. Selflessness, real selflessness, was a rare commodity, and Vera was selfless. He would always love her for that. Robots may not be able to age, and yes, he would grow old and she wouldn't, but what was wrong with that? She would always be there for him, the rock on which he might always depend. What human woman could say that? Stephen frowned. This was a very complicated issue, largely because both sides had very strong arguments for them. Which was better, to experience life with someone or to live life with someone? Was it better to sacrifice your lineage or sacrifice your desires? To stand aside and bow to someone else's will, or to be master of a lie? He didn't know, and it was unpleasant to struggle with. He had spent a lot of money on Vera. She was an investment, a guarantee of good things to come. He had spent a lot of money on his previous girlfriends as well, though spread out across months and years rather than all at once, and with no guarantees of any kind. He had rolled the dice many times, and had betted it all on one lucky throw, and always had crapped out. Vera was the promise that he would never even have to play that game again. But still, she was always going to be the same. It would be like eating the same delicious meal every day. In time, you'd get tired of it. Real women may not be able to guarantee he would always be happy, but at least they were always interesting. Clearly, this was an issue he would have to meditate over. Should have meditated over before now. As Stephen opened the door to his house, he was not at all easy in his mind about the whole idea. He called to Vera and heard her voice from upstairs in response. Ascending the staircase, Stephen felt extremely confused. Could you actually tire of perfection? This question was pushed from his head, however, when he opened the door to the bedroom. Vera was there, stretched luxuriously on the bed and propped on one elbow. She was naked except for a black lace push-up bra and matching panties. She had applied makeup into a very impressive smoky eye effect and her lips were glossed and red. She had tousled her hair so it looked like she had just had some really incredible sex and was looking to have a bit more. This presentiment was at least half correct, as she stood and walked towards him, swinging her hips provocatively.
"Did you have a good day at work?"
she purred, tracing her hands across his chest as she moved behind him to begin to massage his shoulders. "Yeah," he said breathlessly as she playfully licked his ear. I take it you worked your way up to researching sexual techniques."
"Mm-hmm,"
she said, kissing his neck just above his collar.
"I got through the whole list, though I'm going to need further practice with some of the items. They seem to need equipment that I don't have access to."
She crossed in front of him and gently pushed him onto the bed.
"Want to show you some of the techniques I've discovered," she said, licking her lips seductively. "Shall I?"
"By all means," Stephen said with a grin. When all was said and done, Stephen was completely drenched in sweat and could barely move, let alone consider continuing. Vera, for her part, was of course completely capable of carrying on like that without pause or rest all night. But then again, she was a literal sex machine. Stephen didn't have that benefit, and though the mind was willing, if a little sleepy, the flesh was punched out for the day. Vera cuddled up next to him, resting her head on his chest and hugging him, slowly drawing little circles on his chest with one dainty finger.
"How was that?"
Vera asked in a low voice.
"Was I better this time?"
Stephen gurgled. He was incapable of greater eloquence just then.
"Are you tired? If you want to go to sleep, I can shower and join you,"
Vera offered, looking at him. Stephen grunted again. Vera laughed and crawled off him and headed towards the bathroom. Stephen watched her go without moving his head. Who cares if she couldn't have babies? With sex that good to look forward to, what did it matter? Right at this moment, he was so high on Afterglow, he didn't much care about anything. Vera was great. Everything was great. Who cared if she wasn't human? He closed his eyes and slipped easily into sleep. Absolutely no doubts or concerns could penetrate his dopamine-soaked brain just then. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, feel free to hit that like button. And if you'd like to become a Creant and have more story times like this uploaded once a week, you can also hit that subscribe button for more of our content and ring the bell so that you'll be notified whenever we upload a new video. Until next time, see you later.